Turning now to Senator Josh Hawley, a freshman Republican who assumed office in 2019, exposed in the primetime insurrection hearings for cheering Trump fans who would storm the Capitol on January 6th and then running from them. Hawley did more than any member of the Senate to tangibly advance the plot to overthrow the results on the Senate floor. Now remember, in all presidential races, voting ends in November and then states formalize the results in December. The Electoral College makes it official, as you see in this December headline. So it was all over in December, under the Constitution, the law, and what the states said in the Electoral College. That is why even Mitch McConnell, who has pushed constitutional limits on obstruction tactics and stealing a Senate seat, even that Mitch McConnell was in December whipping Senate Republicans into line to just follow the legal results rather than use January 6th for a brawl or some sort of last-ditch futile coup attempt.
Mitch McConnell had urged Republicans not to join House Republicans in certification challenges.
Among the most fundamental aspects of our republic and a democratic system is to accept the outcome of elections.
Republican senators were following McConnell, including many loyal Trump allies. Until, you remember this? You might have been getting ready for New Year's Eve. You might have been thinking about other things until December 30th, when Hawley, this low-ranking freshman, broke ranks, getting headlines like this. There was a crack to purportedly challenge Biden's victory in Congress, and that upended the process because now the Senate would, in a formal sense, try to take up this so-called challenge, turning what had been a dead-end Orwellian Trump last-ditch fantasy into something tangible those marchers could rally around, as Hawley would then salute them that morning. Wanted to make sure everyone knew he started this, he did this, he led this. He took the wheel from McConnell, and, well, now, this week, this very serious, largely nonpartisan probe has newly revealed evidence that shows exactly how Senator Hawley responded to those people he cheered and to the results he claimed to want. Take a look. He ran. He scurried. He ran fearing for his physical safety and his life, fearing those very scary people that he claimed to support and cheer would hurt him. He was apparently aware that those people might beat him or murder and assassinate him if they even got near him. The video shows that Hawley got farther from that main breach to those underground stairways where he continued to do what senators never do in their own halls of power, scurrying with fear down the stairwell to get away from the people he cheered. Let me tell you something, and let me put it plainly as we try to do around here. Rarely do you ever see a public figure's hypocrisy and cowardice crystallized into the peak of the historic crisis that he helped create all in one day? That's what the nation is now seeing. How Hawley started and ended his day on January 6th. The lead senator pushing the plot on the Senate floor then found himself running away from the very forces he helped unleash. So you're running and running and running away. But you can't run away from yourself, as Bob Marley famously put it. And when you are running like that, you must have done something wrong. That is why so many people, regardless of party or ideology, can feel the gut reaction to that cowardly, pathetic, defenestrating sprint by this man, this freshman, this politician. And it is deeper than just a moment, because we get so many things boiled down to these little moments. It's not just a moment. And Hawley is quite literally running away from its own worst creations, from itself. And that's just the facts. It is a truth, and there is room for a reckoning. We bring on campaign veteran Cheiko Manduri, who is here with us on the history, the facts, and what comes next for accountability when we come back.
A particular group of folks were standing there peacefully behind police barricades well off of the plaza. And I waved to them, gave them the thumbs up, pumped my fist to them.
The overwhelming majority of them were peaceful, and there's no doubt about that.
You call them insurrectionists. I mean, folks who I walked by when I was on my way to the House chamber were standing there peacefully.
Josh Hawley lying about who was at the insurrection. We're joined by Obama campaign veteran Shea Coman-Dury. He didn't look like he thought they were peaceful when he was running away.
No, and, I think we've talked before on the beat about political courage, which we defined as basically being willing to put your election on the line for principles, which we're seeing Liz Cheney do right now. What we saw with Josh Hawley was a textbook definition of political cowardice. He literally looked like a con man running away from the dopes he had just fooled. And one thing that it sort of brought to my mind was the movie Get Out. So one of the real concepts in Get Out is the perils of white allyship. The idea that white people, because of their superior social status and on average superior wealth, are not really trustworthy allies of African Americans all the time. That what for African Americans seems like a fight for survival, for white people can be a hobby or a fad. Well, this is a case where we saw the perils of white allyship, except the victims were white people themselves. For the MAGA mob that was there, these were white working class people who were expressing a rage that they felt at a world that betrayed them. For Josh Hawley, this was a professional opportunity. I mean, he was simply using them for career opportunism. And that's something that we see throughout the MAGA movement. All the MAGA leaders are sort of like that. Donald Trump is somebody who comes from privilege. He was actually dismayed at the fact that the rioters looked cheap and poor to him, and that they made him look like he was a low-class figure. Howard Stern said Donald Trump would rather please Maggie Haberman at the New York Times than the MAGA mob. The same thing is true with Tucker Carlson. He's somebody who James Carville once described more comfortable with liberal media elites like Al Hunt and Judy Woodruff than the people who actually watch this show. So we have seen this repeatedly with the MAGA movement. This movement is run by elite leaders who are really just con artists and look at the white working class as marks to make more money off of, to have a profitable swindle.
You make a very incisive point, particularly with the lying and the elitism there, which, of course, they lie about. So they don't want to admit to the elitism, although they seem obsessed with it, which might be because they're familiar with it because it comes from within. When you look at what they've created,
Right.
This is dangerous to everyone, but it's also dangerous to them, which is why it can seem so supremely craven. There have been attempts to valorize Mike Pence, which are extremely counterfactual and odd. He spent his last days up to the 6th holding meetings trying to find out if he could find a way to help the coup that wouldn't make him a criminal. Donald Trump didn't want to directly do stuff. Mike Pence had spent a lot of time around him and got the memo, which is why there were memos. And that's not courageous leadership. It was a final double checking of whether he could find a way to do it. All the lawyers said no. Plenty of people in government and business know you check with lawyers. And he didn't do it. So what does it tell you that people like Mr. Hawley and Mr. Pence, who may have had different points or different lines they found, but Mr. Pence went along with all of this, the misogyny, the racism, the violent rhetoric, all of it, up to the night of the eve of the insurrection, the 5th. Was he, in your view, a hero, or was he on a spectrum closer to Mr. Hawley? We wish safety for everyone. We are against murder and assassination. But at a very direct level, did he, do you think, also foment and contribute to MAGA, which then tried to kill him, or do you think he's a hero?
Well, I don't think Mike Pence is a hero. I would not put him as far as Josh Hawley. I think that the description of breakers and gamers, I think it really applies to Mike Pence. Mike Pence wanted to use the MAGA mob to game the system. And by the way, he largely succeeded. You saw his response to the Dobbs decision. He was delighted. He wants abortion to be legal in all 50 states now. That was why he basically believed he could game the system. And he went right up to January 5th, January 6th, gaming the system to try to get what he wants, which was abortion overturned. I think he also would like to see gay marriage overturned, et cetera, et cetera. That was his goal. I think Josh Hawley's much more of a narcissist. I think that he is, at his heart, a con man. And I think one of the big things with con men by seeing how much they can get away with. And I think that's very true of Josh Hawley. I think that's true of Tucker Carlson. And I think that's true of Donald Trump.
Very interesting on all of it, and you've been around some of it. And some people quote lyrics. You said makers and breakers, so I think you're quoting historian Tim Snyder. But you can quote any wisdom here. Che, thank you. Have a good weekend. I got to keep it moving because Dr. Anthony Fauci